Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Kathleen Lenaghan. I grew up on a farm in Jackson County, north of Macokota. I graduated from Macokota High School in 1977, and I've lived in the area, Davenport, Scott County. Um, I've worked as a nurse most of my life. I've retired a couple years ago, and throughout that time, I've always enjoyed art and done art. And in the last few years, since my kids have been grown, and especially since I've retired, I've had a lot more time to focus on developing the art skills that I have. As long as I can remember, even before I was in kindergarten, I used to love to draw stuff, and I drew badly, and sometimes I drew on walls. I remember that. But I love to draw horses and animals, and I would trace and I spent a lot of my school years when I was supposed to be taking notes. I was drawing, and then as adulthood kind of came upon me, and I had kids to raise, I kind of backed off on it a little bit with school as my children got older, and I was a chronic student, so I kept going back to school, but that always kind of came in there. I started taking community ed classes, and I took classes in drawing and in watercolor and different kinds of painting just when the opportunities arose. And I felt like those really, really helped me to be inspired and to keep going and to learn new things, watercolor versus acrylic versus oil. And so I really kept on it. And then for the last maybe 15 years or so, I really focused on pastel painting. And that's my favorite. I enjoy art. There's not one artist that I really am influenced by, but on a more personal level, I've been influenced by the artists that I've met in workshops and in other places. And actually, what really inspired me to work on pastel paintings was a workshop at Macokota Art Experience with Ellen Wagner, who's an artist from DeWitt, who makes beautiful, beautiful rural landscapes and other kinds of paintings. And I'd actually bought pastels, and I tried them, and I didn't like them, and they sat in a desk for 10 years. And then when I took the class with Ellen, she showed me how to use them correctly and to use good materials. And so she was a huge inspiration. Since that time, I've had other artists that have been very encouraging, and often when you take a workshop or a class, critical of what you do, and tell you what you're doing wrong, and that's what you need to hear. And so I guess, like I say, on a personal level, those artists that I've come in contact with that have helped me to learn and to encourage me to keep learning and developing and trying some new things. So many people are afraid of not being good, or they say, I don't have the talent. And boy, just get out there and make something. Just make something that you enjoy, learn something, and most of your art isn't gonna be a finished product. But think of process, not outcomes. You have to enjoy the process, and don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take your art too seriously. If you make a bad painting, so what? You start another one, and you've learned something. And keep learning. If you want to learn how to paint landscapes, which that's my favorite, don't set out to think I'm going to make the perfect landscape, but keep your eyes open. Boy, you just in everyday life, seeing, hey, this would be an interesting painting, or look at those clouds, or look at that sky. And I think by looking at the world around us in artist's eyes, that benefits you, even if you never produce any painting that you would even put in a frame. Most of mine don't make it to frames, but I enjoy making all of them. It was kind of interesting. I don't do murals, and so when I first heard about it, I thought, I don't do murals, that's huge. But then I learned more about it, and they actually just wanted you to paint a smaller painting, and then they would blow it up, some process. And they had lots of criteria. They wanted it to include something about downtown Macokota caves, the Hurstville lime kilns, agriculture, and how to put that all in one painting, and it couldn't be a collage, it had to be integrated. So the way I decided to work on it was, I can't think of Maquoketa without thinking of the Maquoketa River, and I think of trees. And so I put a big old river in the middle of it, the Maquoketa River. I went out and took reference photos. It was fun taking reference photos at all those places. I don't do buildings a lot, so that was a real challenge. If you look at that mural, if you happen to go out there, be sure and notice the red canopy of Maquoketa Art Experience in the painting.